We see symbols like the bunny everywhere, especially around certain holidays. But what if it's more than just a cute, fluffy animal? Today, we're diving into a worldview that sees the bunny not as a simple sign of spring, but as a key, a major symbol in a hidden system of energy and, believe it or not, control. Okay, so let's just jump right in with a question that sounds, well, kinda out there. What on earth could possibly connect the Playboy bunny to ancient Egyptian mythology? I mean, really? But according to the theory we're exploring today, that connection isn't just real, it's actually central to how this whole hidden system works. And boom, this quote from our source just throws us right into the deep end, doesn't it? It's basically saying, hey, stop and think about this for a second. It totally challenges what we think we know about Easter symbols and draws this super direct and, pretty unconventional line between women, eggs, and rabbits. This kind of thinking really sets the stage for everything else we're about to unpack. All right, so let's get into the first big idea here. This theory claims that the bunny's symbol is at the very heart of a system for harvesting sexual energy. And it all kicks off with a play on words that, in this view, is absolutely not a coincidence. This is where we really have to understand the specific lingo of this theory. First, the word bunny is deliberately connected to bread buns. Simple enough. But then, the slang term chicks for women is seen as a direct reference to their ability to produce eggs. And these aren't just any eggs, they're containers for a powerful life force. So you see, these aren't just words. They're seen as code. So you're probably asking, how does this whole harvesting thing supposedly work? Well, this theory lays out a 4-step cycle. Step 1, it all starts with stimulation, often through pornography. Step 2, this leads to the release of what's called life force, or the yolk. But here's the twist. Instead of just being lost, that energy is supposedly absorbed by the symbolic bunny. And the final step? This harvested energy is then used to power the agendas of a hidden cabal to literally manifest their will in our world. And this quote, man, it really brings it all home, right? It presents a really clear choice. You can either let your energy get harvested by this outside system, or you can reclaim that very same power to manifest your own goals and desires. It's a call to action. Okay, let's peel back another layer of this because it gets deeper. The whole symbolism of the egg isn't just about physical life force. It's also tied directly to the human mind, to consciousness itself, and to a very specific, very mysterious part of the brain. And this is where you see a huge split from what we normally think. Conventionally, an egg means spring, rebirth, new life. We all get that. But in this worldview, the egg is a symbol for the pineal gland in our brain, the so-called third eye. It represents consciousness, gnosis, which is like direct, intuitive knowing. And it's even connected to the tomb that Christ was resurrected from. And get this reinterpretation seeps into our everyday language. The theory claims that the phrase getting laid isn't just some crude slang. No, supposedly it comes from this deeply spiritual process where sexual energy travels up the spine to lay an egg of consciousness in the pineal gland. And the rabbit hole just keeps getting deeper. The egg symbol gets linked to the winged cherubim at the very top of the Kabbalistic tree of life. It's connected to Christ breaking the shell of his tomb. It goes on and on. Even the famous pillars of Solomon's temple are reinterpreted as symbols of the human body. See? Everything connects to everything. All right, let's pull the camera back for a second and look at the big picture here. Because in this view, this isn't just about what happens to one person's energy. It's about a planet-wide system of spiritual enslavement. And a really important metaphor for this supposed prison comes from ancient Egypt. So to understand this, we need to talk about the myth of the Djed pillar. The story goes that the god Osiris gets tricked and trapped in a coffin. The coffin ends up inside a tree, and that tree is then cut down and used as a pillar in a palace, hiding his body inside until he's finally rescued. The key takeaway here is this idea of a sacred essence being trapped inside a physical thing. Now, normally people see the Djed pillar as a symbol of stability, right? But this theory flips that completely on its head and asks, what if it's actually a symbol of entrapment? What if it's a giant metaphor for our own consciousness, just like Osiris, being trapped inside a physical prison, our bodies? So how is this whole system of controls supposedly kept in place? The theory points to a few specific methods. Fluoride in the water, That's claimed to calcify or turn the pineal gland to stone. Major historical covenants are seen as spiritual contracts with a demiurge. That's a Gnostic term for a kind of false creator god. Even rituals and the worship of idols are seen as tools to just distract everyone from their real spiritual power. And this is where things get, well, really controversial. This theory suggests that some of the biggest religious covenants are part of this control system. It argues that identities and even the names of gods might have been stolen or used as a kind of trick to fool humanity. But after laying out this giant, elaborate system of control, this whole worldview doesn't just leave you hanging. It also lays out a path to liberation, a way to, in its own language, hatch from the matrix. So the key to getting free, according to this, all comes down to the ego. But it's not just a psychological idea. It's seen as a literal eggshell. And this shell is painted with all the false identities and beliefs we pick up from society, and it hardens around our pineal gland, trapping our true consciousness deep inside. And even the colors of this eggshell have their own secret language. A golden egg, that's the ideal self. Red represents sacrificial blood. White is for a new beginning. But a decorated, colorful egg, like an Easter egg, is said to represent the ego on full display, almost like a peacock showing off its feathers. So the big question is, how do you actually hatch? The theory lays out a 5-step process. It starts with purifying the body and then decalcifying the 7 major glands, which are seen as the chakras. And as you can see, this involves a pretty radical diet. The ultimate goal through all of this is to separate your true self from that ego shell and achieve a kind of spiritual rebirth. And you'll notice the number 7 keeps popping up. That's no coincidence here. It connects to the 7 seals in the Book of Revelation, the 7 chakras, and the 7 glands of the endocrine system. The idea is that unlocking these 7 points is the key to unlocking your full consciousness. So, when you boil it all down, the entire goal of this journey is captured in this one idea. One must hatch out of their eggshell to truly live. It's all about breaking free from the ego that's been constructed around you to experience what this worldview considers to be true life. Wow, okay, so we've just gone on a wild ride, right? Through this incredibly complex, definitely unconventional web of symbols, connecting everything from Playboy bunnies to Egyptian gods. It's a worldview that pretty much reinterprets everything we take for granted. And all of this kind of leaves us with one big final question to chew on. So look, whether you think this is all a hidden truth or just an incredible work of fiction, it really makes you ask yourself this. Are all the symbols we see every day just innocent decorations, or are they part of a complex language, one filled with meaning that maybe, just maybe, we've forgotten how to read?